On November 20th, 1993, Arkansas State played the 100th game in the history of Indian Stadium, but that historic fact was overshadowed by the unbelievable ending. The Indians were huge underdogs going into the game against defending Big West Conference champion Nevada. Now, despite the overwhelming odds against them, the Indians kept fighting. The first half ended with an amazing catch by Marquise Williams to give the Tribe a halftime advantage. But the Wolfpack battled back to take the lead with time running out on the Indians.
One last play left. Covington steps up in the pocket. Johnny throwing for the corner of the end zone. Murphy, touchdown! 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 The drive is won! The drive is won! A touchdown pass from Johnny Covington to Razor Murphy! How about that? How about that? Holy cow! Look at the fans! Look at the celebration outside the end zone! Arkansas State has won the final game of 1993, and Arkansas State wins it by a final score of 23-21.
This thrilling win against Nevada is symbolic of the tradition of Indian football. Many times throughout the history of Arkansas State, the Tribe has used hard work and determination by coaches, players, and fans to overcome tremendous odds to produce national champions, bowl game appearances, undefeated seasons, All-Americans, and outstanding memories for those who wear the scarlet and black. Established as one of the 4 agricultural schools in the state in 1909, Arkansas State began athletic competition 2 years later on the high school and college level. As an agricultural school, the first nickname for A-State was the Aggies, or Aggie Farmers as they were sometimes called. A committee of faculty and students chose scarlet and black as the official school colors. The first season in 1911, the Aggies played only 2 games, both against Paragould High School. Arkansas State finished the first year with a 1-1 record. The early days established rivalries that still exist today. In 1914, Arkansas State defeated Memphis State 18-6. The following season, A-State shut out Ole Miss 10-0. The most lopsided victory occurred in 1917 when Arkansas State defeated Arkansas State Teachers College 101-0. Arkansas Teachers College is now known as the University of Central Arkansas. During the 20s and 30s, Arkansas State went through several name changes. In 1926, the name Aggies was changed to Gorillas. However, A-State would again change nickname in 1928 to the Warriors. 2 years later, A-State would finally be called Indians. Football in the early days at Arkansas State was a casual outing. Many spectators would pull their cars to the edge of the field to watch the game. And in 1929, lights were installed for the Indians to play the first night game in Arkansas State history against Lambeth College. A-State won 22-0. In the 30s, K Stadium was built to accommodate the crowds. As the fortunes declined in the United States during the 30s, so did Arkansas State football. Many athletes joined the military. Some were called up by the National Guard to help battle the Great Flood of 1937. The Indians finished the decade of the 30s without a winning season, but losing records would be the least of anyone's worries in the years ahead. The football program at Arkansas State was suspended during World War II, but as the boys returned to campus after the war, the task of rebuilding the athletic department fell on the shoulders of Ike Tomlinson.
I was asked by then President Keyes to start the rebuilding of the athletic program. We had 23 on the total squad. By the time the season rolled around, it was down to about 17 men.
For the most part, Tomlinson had to start from scratch. The athletic budget in the mid-1940s was just over $1,000, and equipment was scarce.
I found, when I started football back, I found the uniforms that had been used in the last game in the 1940 season which I understood had been played in the mud, and I learned that when I found the uniforms. They were in a couple of burlap sacks over in what was then the old round barn building, about where the post office sits now. I found them up on the second floor, thrown back in the corner. And when I opened the sacks, it was not a pleasant odor. Put those black and red wool uniforms on those players, and they really suffered through that first game.
Many of the players on the Arkansas State teams following the war had served in the military and saw fierce fighting overseas. Tomlinson had to change the way he coached and motivated these players.
One of the players in practice one day came to me, and I had chided him about something and said, do this and do this. And he came to me and he said, Coach, I respect you, but don't ever order me to do anything. You ask me to do it, because I've taken all the orders I'm going to take. And he had been in the service 5.5 years, so, I knew exactly what he meant.
The 1945 team finished the season with a 2-4-1 record, but their contribution to Indian football is more important than wins and losses. Because of their sacrifice and hard work, future Indian programs could grow and prosper.
I give all the credit to those 23 young fellows that after all they'd done for the country and sacrificed themselves, they were ready to come out there and represent the school the best they could. And I respect them very much for that.
While Coach Tomlinson did a great job of reestablishing athletics at Arkansas State following the war, he couldn't do the job alone. So Tomlinson brought a friend to Jonesboro to take over the football coaching duties. His name, Forrest "Frosty" England. Frosty England was an unlikely candidate for a football coach. He didn't see his first football game until he was in high school and was quoted as saying the game scared him to death. England knew that building a program would be tough. Coaching was just part of his job. He also had to cut grass on the playing field. Arkansas State had no recruiting budget, and most of the games were played on the road. Despite these obstacles, Frosty England would guide the tribe to one of the most successful eras in Arkansas State history.
He was a great fan of the Chicago Bears. And of course, George Hallis of the Bears perfected the T formation. And Coach England had studied that formation for several years and added to it his own ideas and so on until he became an authority all over the country.
Harry Larsh was tough. He was a prize fighter, a wrestler, and ran track. As a World War II veteran, Larsh decided to complete his education at Arkansas State and play football. Despite his ability in other sports, Larsh knew nothing about the game of football.
I went in the dressing room after practice, and Harry was sitting over at one side, just sitting there. And I could see that something was wrong with him. And I sat down by him and I said, "Are you hurt, Harry?" And he said, "No, but I want you to look at my chin and my neck." And I looked, and it was almost raw, just inflamed and raw. And I said, "What happened to you?" And he said, "I don't know, but when I would get down like the coach wanted me to, in my position, something was always rubbing my neck." So I looked, and he had not taken his shoulder pads off, and he had them on backwards. Nobody had told him how to put them on. He put them on backwards, and when he'd bend over, that front part of the pad would just rub up and down that hot 2 hours, and that neck was almost raw.
But what Harry Larsh lacked in knowledge of the game, he made up for in determination and toughness. As a defensive lineman, Larsh manhandled opponents and brought respect to Arkansas State football. Larsh became an All-American, was the first Indian invited to the Blue-Gray game, and signed a pro contract with the Baltimore Colts. While Larsh set a new standard on defense at Arkansas State, Richie Ward would establish himself as the little warrior on offense. At only 5'7" and 175 pounds, Richie Ward was usually the smallest man on the field for Arkansas State, but Ward would establish some big things as an Indian. During his career, Richie Wart scored more touchdowns than any collegiate player in America, carried the ball over 4,000 yards, led the Tribe to a 31-6 record, and the first undefeated season in the school's history. Richie Wart's record-setting rushing numbers and Frosty England's coaching would take the Tribe to new heights during the 1950s. The decade of the 50s was an exciting time for Arkansas State football. In 1952, A-State joined the NCAA. That same year, Jumpin' Joe was designed. And the Tribe would take their first plane trip to Lafayette, Louisiana. In 1951, the Indians won the Refrigerator Bowl, 46-12, against Camp Breckenridge with the help of 166 yards and 3 touchdowns from Richie Wart. The next year, Arkansas State went to 2 bowl games in the same year. And in 1954, the Indians faced East Texas State in the Tangerine Bowl. Now, while these bowl games did much to establish Arkansas State as a national small college power during the 1950s, it would take an old rival close to home to produce something special for the Indians to brag about. The rivalry between Arkansas State and Memphis State goes back to 1914. In fact, the Indians defeated the Tigers in their first 7 meetings. There were some tremendous battles between both schools, but 2 games in the mid-50s would take the rivalry to a new level. In 1953, the Indians were 2-touchdown underdogs against the Tigers, but the Tribe scored on their first possession when Paul Stovall ran for an 8-yard touchdown. Later in the game, Stovall scored again, and Richie Wart ran for a touchdown. The Indian defense completely shut down the Tiger offense for a 20-0 Arkansas State win. In 1955, A-State would again battle the Tigers in another hard-fought contest. This time, the Indians would go down to the wire before defeating Memphis State 21-20 in a dramatic come-from-behind victory.
I know the students on campus were so involved that it was the tradition back then to go to the Memphis campus and do some painting on the buildings and painting on the sidewalks, and certainly their students were over here prowling around our campus. And of course, there was always a group that was trying to trap them, and they would lay out all throughout the campus, and 4 or 5 would gang up on them. In fact, they caught 3 of them one night and shaved them and sent them back, shaved their heads and sent them back to Memphis. Certainly a bald-headed student. But it was great to have those kind of rivalries in those days. It was good, clean fun.
To alleviate the painting, cleanup, and bald heads, the Memphis State-Arkansas State game was dubbed the Paint Bucket Bowl. The winning team would be awarded a paint bucket as a victory trophy. In 1957, the series between Memphis State and Arkansas State was discontinued. They would not play again until 1975. In 1963, Arkansas State was about to take another step in building the football program. A-State was one of the charter members of the new Southland Conference that included Lamar Tech, Arlington State College, Abilene Christian, and Trinity. Indian football needed a bright, energetic coach to lead the Tribe. They found the right man in Benny Ellender. Immediately, Ellender went to work on building a solid program at Arkansas State. In 1964, the Indians finished the season undefeated. If Arkansas State were to continue to be successful, they needed to recruit top athletes. But ironically, one of the best players to ever wear an Indian uniform was someone no one recruited. As a high school player in South Dayton, New York, no football programs were interested in Bill Berge. Berge knew he had the skills to play on the college level if someone would give him a chance. So if no one would recruit Bill Berge, he would have to sell himself.
The National Coaches Convention was held in New York, and this guy named Bill Berge kept sending paper clippings of his achievements in high school to Benny Ellender. Well, they met in New York, and to make a long story short, Berge was offered tuition to come to ASU. When Bill Berge first arrived on campus at ASU, nobody really knew where to line him up, so I said I'd take him, and we ran him at fullback for several weeks, and he just didn't seem to really fit the mold there as a fullback. Then we swapped him over to the defensive side, and he played a little defensive end and showed just a little brightness. But then someone got hurt, and he moved him into inside linebacker. And man, he was a kind of an undisciplined type player, but that he didn't play with a lot of technique. He played with speed and determination and just a lot of fight to be the best defensive player he could be. And certainly there wasn't uncommon at all for him to get 30 or so individual tackles during a game. I think he set a record for individual tackles, and of course that opened the door for a two-time All-American, a 14-year NFL player, 7-time Pro Bowler. He was just an outstanding, a loose cannon, I might add, but he was an outstanding football player.
In his final year as an Indian in 1968, Bill Bergey and the Tribe would win its first Southland Conference championship and appear in the Pecan Bowl. While Bill Bergey's aggressive style of play set the tone for Arkansas State's defense during the late 60s, Calvin Harrell would bring a hard-nosed brand of running to the Indian offense.
Calvin Harrell was probably the hardest and the toughest running back that I've ever seen. And that's from then up till now. I know there are people that's been as good, there's people that's been better and everything, but he was as hard a runner as I have ever seen carrying football.
In 1969, Calvin Harrell and the Tribe would win its second straight Southland Conference championship. Benny Ellender had assembled a team that was rewriting the Arkansas State record books. But as the 1970 season approached, no one was sure of how good the Indians would be. This question would be answered on the first game of the season when the Indians made a mistake against major college power Wichita State.
We fumbled the opening kickoff down about the 7-yard line. And Wichita State was a major college. And when our defense held them and Wichita State didn't score, then we knew right then that we could play.
The Indians' thrashing of Wichita State 53-14 was the confidence builder that the Tribe needed to roll over opponents for the rest of the 1970 season.
And so when I walked in the huddle, you know, just to look at those eyes, and when you called a play and one of them knew it was coming toward them, or then you could just see their eyes kind of light up and get a little bit because they was thinking to get after somebody. A lot of folks think I'm lying when I tell them this, but Bill Phillips and Wayne Dorton, and not all the time, but every now and then would tell the defensive linemen where we're fixing to run football. Because they were so confident in their ability and in our ability that they wanted them to know that we was fixing to whip them.
What started out as a question mark year for Arkansas State football in 1970 ended in a perfect 11-0 season, a third straight Southland Conference championship, a victory in the Pecan Bowl against Central Missouri, and a College Division national championship. While other opponents may have had greater talent than ASU in 1970, few could match the Tribe's will to win that season.
We always played teams that had bigger defenses than our offense. We always played teams that had faster receivers than our defensive backs. But somehow, in some way, we was going to find a way to get across the goal line and to score more points. I don't believe that our talent level was quite up to everybody else's, but I don't believe their desire come any close to equaling ours.
A new era was beginning at Arkansas State in 1974. Bill Davidson had taken over the reins of the Indian football program after the departure of Benny Ellender in 1971. And while Case Field had been the home of ASU football for nearly 40 years, it was time for a new stadium.
In 1974, we moved from old Case Field, which had probably some of the biggest and notorious rats that any stadium could ever have. You know, we had flags out there for many years recruiting players saying this is the new stadium site right here. It's going to be so pretty. It's going to seat 50,000. It's going to be all this and all that. Well, eventually we walked over there one day and there was a stadium. And it was just like a new suit. It was just really fantastic.
On September 28, 1974, Arkansas State played its first game in the new 16,000-seat Indian Stadium against Louisiana Tech. Stan Winfrey scored the first touchdown in the new stadium on a 1-yard plunge. However, the Tribe lost to the Bulldogs 20-7. The game that will always be remembered by ASU fans during the inaugural season of Indian Stadium is the Tribe's dramatic 22-20 victory over McNeese State. Joe Duran set an NCAA record by kicking a 63-yard field goal in the first quarter of the game. But as remarkable as that kick was, Duran kicked a game-winning 56-yard field goal with seconds remaining on the clock. In 1975, Arkansas State moved from small college status to Division I. That meant that the competition for the Indians would be at a much higher level. The championship seasons of the 60s had proven to many A-State followers that ASU was ready for the big time. Expectations were running high. It would take a very special team to meet the challenges of the 75 season.
The 1975 ball club was so unique. You can't imagine how it would be to step in a huddle on 3rd and 8, and they'd want you to run the tailback up the middle. The offensive line would. There was a group of players that knew that no one would beat them. And I mean that. No one would beat that 75 ball club.
The first 3 games on the schedule in 1975 proved to be a cakewalk for the Tribe, but the 4th game against Memphis State would be something special. It was the first meeting between the two schools since competition had been discontinued in the late 50s. In 75, the Tigers program was perceived as much better than the Indians.
We were really supposed to lose that game. We were underdogs going into it, and everybody thought there's no way that ASU is going to beat Memphis State, because that was really probably the toughest competition we played up to that time that year. And it was really a test for us. How good is Arkansas State? We were undefeated going into the game, and this would be a true test of how good we really were.
Going to the Memphis State game, it was ironic that when we passed the river in our buses going over, all the players said, okay, this is it. And baby, it was it. And we went out there with 38 or 40,000 in the stands and literally dominated the Memphis State Tigers.
David Hines was the quarterback, Leroy Harris the fullback, Dennis Bolden the tailback. We had so much in the offense. The offensive line probably averaged 255, which is small today, but back then it was big, and just dominated up front. Defensively, we were aggressive, got after them, and I think we really surprised a lot of people that day.
After the Memphis State game, the Tribe continued to roll through the 1975 season, chalking up victory after victory. Again, the Indians would face another test on the final game of the season against Louisiana Tech. Tech had won 4 consecutive conference championships and were picked to win a 5th. But nothing would deny the 1975 Indians from a perfect season. The Tribe whipped the Bulldogs to finish with a perfect 11-0 season. Despite the perfect year as a new member of Division I football, Arkansas State was not invited to postseason play. However, nothing could take away the excitement about the accomplishments of the 1975 Arkansas State Indians.
Also that year, and a very interesting point, was Jimmy Lisco. The NCAA started a category of records that they'd never kept before, and that was he blocked 9 punts himself. And after that, they created a category for blocked punts. And that was a record, and I'm sure it'll never be broken, for one ASU Indian to block 9 punts during the season. It was just an outstanding time for the football program.
And I see from the 75 team working hard together as a team, you can accomplish your goals. And believing in each other, having the confidence that you can do it. And I think that's carried over in other areas of my life.
The Tribe would win another conference championship in 1978 and continue the tradition of producing great football players. And while each era of Indian football has its own unique place in history, the 1975 Arkansas State football season was voted as the greatest year ever by ASU fans. As the decade of the 70s came to a close, the future of Arkansas State football looked bright. After all, the 70s had produced several conference championships a top 25 national ranking, a national championship in 1970, an undefeated team in 75, and several players with outstanding careers in professional football. Because of these achievements, great things were expected from new football coach Larry Lacewell.
I think because I came from the University of Oklahoma where we'd had a lot of success, people equated that and thought I was going to step in there and do great. And frankly, I fell flat on my face. I think we were 4-7 and 2-9, and I was a big disappointment. I about got that program messed up.
During Lacewell's first few years, the tribe struggled to find the winning system. Finally, the Indians used a combination of solid defense and the wishbone offense as ingredients for success at Arkansas State. In 1981, Lacewell felt the tribe was about to turn the corner toward a winning program.
But gradually, slowly, my third year there, I remember we beat the University of Tulsa, which they were 9-0, and if I can remember one game, one time, one point where I thought we kind of gotten over the hump, it started that particular season, and we switched to the option game, the dreaded wishbone, the old fullback up the middle, and we became one of the leading rushing teams in the United States. And from that day on, regardless whether we were 6-5, 5-6, 8-3, 9-2, from that third season on, we were a very, very competitive football team.
But just as things were looking up for the Indians in the early 80s, ASU was about to suffer another setback. After only 7 seasons at the Division I level, the NCAA regulated the tribe down to Division I AA. This meant that the Indians would have to compete against bigger schools with fewer scholarship players on the roster. Nevertheless, ASU continued to play major college powers, including Alabama and the legendary coach Bear Bryant, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Texas A&M. Many of the games provided some down-to-the-wire thrills for ASU fans. Despite the lower division ranking and limited scholarships for Arkansas State, the Indians never backed down from the big boys and represented the university with pride and excellence.
I told our coaching staff that we were going to treat those games like seriously, just like they were every game. Monday was going to be the same, whether we won or lost. Tuesday was going to be the same, and we took that approach. We never acted like it was a big deal to us, and also, you know, I kidded our players a lot about playing in front of a lot of people, and would they get scared and leave, and things like that. But we practiced so hard physically that games were easy to us. I think our team, our coaches, thought we could win the game, and it didn't make any difference who we played. If it was Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Kansas, whoever, we were going to play them, and we did. I think you go back and look at the scores, and look at the halftime scores. We took them to the wire almost every time, and I think our players were so proud of that, we just wouldn't quit.
Talent, hard work, and determination were key ingredients in Arkansas State's success against national powerhouses. But the tribe had a few tricks up their sleeve as well.
And I'd seen every trick in the world pulled on me, and I kind of kept a file of them. Matter of fact, we have what we call a trick reel, a film made up of nothing but tricks. And every time we'd see one, Ellen Holly would take it off and put it on there. And usually on Wednesdays or Thursdays late in the week, we would take it out and look at it and say, is there something here that we can use this week? And so we had periods in our practice as the years went by where we practiced nothing but tricks. Then you got to have enough guts to call them, or be nuts enough to call them, crazy enough to call them, and maybe I was all of the above, but I'd call a guard around or reverse pass or fake something. I'd do it in a New York minute, nothing else, to make the defensive team on the other side of the field mad at me.
The Indians renewed the old rivalry against Memphis State during the 80s. The Tigers had not played ASU since the 1975 Indian upset. It would take some wheeling and dealing on Lacewell's part to resume competition between the two old rivals.
I made a trip over there one time and offered my soul almost guarantee-wise to Spook Murphy. I came for nothing. more or less, just to get to play. And the deal was their officials play there and not pay us much money. Well, I think we shocked them. We proved that we could stay on the field with them. We had a winning record while I was there against Memphis State, and it just got better and better because they got little South Arkansas here. They got scareder and scareder of us, and because once you beat a team, they come back pretty mad. But we handled them, and I thought we outfought them. I thought it meant more to us. It developed over the years, and I'm real proud of our record, the way we handled Memphis State. We taught the city of Memphis and maybe the South a lot about Arkansas State football during that period of time.
Again, the series between Memphis State and Arkansas State produced some exciting memories for ASU fans, but there was one moment that stands out as one of the strangest plays in Arkansas State football history. It's commonly referred to as the 5th down.
I remember well, that was a game where it was 4th down, and we held them at the 1-yard line, and they didn't score, and all of a sudden we were out ready to run our offensive play, and they awarded them another down. They gave them another down. They said it had been an inadvertent whistle. Well, everybody was shocked, and I fell out on the ground and beat on the ground. The picture made the Associated Press all across the nation of me laying on the ground like a little baby. But there was a reason I was on the ground. I've never seen it called, and I've never seen it since then on the 1-yard line, an inadvertent whistle. But the good Lord was watching over us, and we held them. Probably turning point of the game. We held them, went in, stopped them, and we beat them 35-14. We really murdered them in the second half, and that really fired our football team up.
The ASU football program took off in the mid-'80s. The Indians brought home 2 Southland Conference championships, 4 straight appearances in the Division I AA playoffs, and competed for a national championship. In addition, the fans saw a lot of great athletes wear the scarlet and black. Maurice Carthon, Fred Barnett, Rick Fishback, Waddell Kelly, Carter Ray Crawford, Ray Brown, Ricky Jemison, Elbert Shelley, Vincent Barnett, Dwayne Brown, Roy Johnson, Charlie Frederick, and Cassie Francis. The 1980s carried on the tradition of Arkansas State champions and championships. Coach Lacewell credits his players and coaches and the great support of ASU fans for this special time in ASU football history.
Heck, it was just so rewarding, and it was so rewarding to see the good people at Arkansas State stick their chest out a little bit and prove that there was another pretty good football program in the state of Arkansas, and I think the people nationally started waking up to that fact. So yeah, it was probably the most rewarding thing ever happened to me in my career.
'1986 was a significant year in the history of Arkansas State football. The Tribe played in the 1AA National Championship game. That same year, Arkansas State ended its 23-year relationship with the Southland Conference. The Indians would compete on the gridiron as an independent. ASU continued to play larger football programs after leaving the SLC with a goal of returning to the Division I level. To achieve this, Indian Stadium was expanded to over 33,000 seats in 1991. In 1992, ASU was readmitted to Division 1A. The following year, the Tribe joined the Big West Conference, but only 3 years later, Arkansas State would again compete as an independent. While the program has struggled through times of change recently, the future looks positive for Arkansas State football. New head coach Joe Hollis has energized the program with his determination to build ASU into one of the best football programs in the country.
We want to be a rallying point for the people of Arkansas. I wanted to say Northeast Arkansas, but really of Arkansas in total. and one that they, on Saturday afternoons, that they want to be entertained, they can come to the stadium here in Jonesboro and enjoy the football games and all the activities that involved with it. And also the bottom line is, you know, we need to win and establish a consistent winning type program.
Each new season is marked with excitement, and while all ASU Indians fans look ahead with anticipation toward great moments that will add to the record books, it's important that we remember the spirit, determination, and traditions that built Arkansas State football. While some years have been better than others, the pride of those who wear the scarlet and black will last forever.
There's a lot of things that at the time you're playing, you don't know how it's really benefiting you or what you're going to learn from it. But hindsight, looking back, you see a lot of the team working together. I use the word family. I use the word leadership by example. And those things that you learn in sports, being on a team, a winning team or a losing team, I think carry over with you in what you do in other areas of your life. And working hard together as a team, you can accomplish your goals.
I didn't realize how important this university would be to me until I kind of finished my football coaching. Times were hard back then, but it's one of the happiest times I believe any group of student athletes could go through.
I mean, it was a great time for me, and well, a great time for all of us.